Welcome to AIJ Philadelphia Design Conversations. I'm Bernardo Margulis, and today I'm speaking with Steve Frykholm, who 45 years ago became Herman Miller's first graphic designer, and today is the Vice President of Creative Design for the company. Hi Steve, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
Very excited to have you here for AIJ Philadelphia. I want to ask you a few questions about your career, about your work, and then learn about your lecture tonight.
You're coming, aren't you?
Of course.
Well, you'll learn a lot. Maybe you'll learn a lot. I don't know.
Will everyone else learn a lot?
I talk about some of my lessons that I've learned, so maybe I'll save you some grief if you learn from my mistakes. Not that they were mistakes. I mean, you screw up and you learn.
Is there anything, particularly any big lessons that you think?
Oh, you'll find out.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of my later questions was a preview of your conversation, but I guess you already gave that to us. Or not. We have to be there.
You have to be there.
All right. So let's talk a little about your career. In 1970, you were the first internal designer at Herman Miller, and this was after 2 years in the Pierce Corps. Your first assignment was to design a poster for the picnic, and you not only designed it, but you took the challenge to do everything from design, do the stencils for the screen printing. You did absolutely everything.
Everything. Printing. After hours. Now, don't ask me why I did it after hours. I mean, it was a project, right? But I guess I didn't want the building to get high in the fumes, you know. Compose yourself, man.
I was going to say, I'm having fun.
Well, so am I. Let's keep going.
I was going to ask you why after hours, but I was going to ask you, why did you take that challenge? Why did you decide to produce it, not just design it? And how do you think that affected the design?
Well, they probably didn't have the budget to print it.
Herman Miller didn't have a project?
Well, you know,
budget?
we have an expression out there about the folks that have Dutch heritage. We say they have deep pockets but short arms.
So you had to make up for it and do the printing.
I mean, I've discovered that if you really have a pretty interesting solution to a problem, the money appears.
And how?
If it's not on someone's annual plan. If they want it bad enough, you'll get it done.
How do you think that affects your plans for designing or the final product?
I don't worry about the budgets. I mean, I'm accountable for them, but I don't get hung up on them. I'm more excited about the project and the design solution than I am the budget. I've done projects with minimal amount of money. I've done projects with a lot of money.
So is that part of the challenge, being able to figure out regardless?
I always had a sense of what was appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And how does that work in terms of working for a big company like Herman Miller? You know what's appropriate, but you have to talk to the stakeholders and...
Well, you know, don't get me going on budgets. I remember I had a performance review once, and one of the questions was, treats the company assets as if they're your own. Right? Good question. Not really a good question, because I gave myself a 10. 10 was high. I really did. And my boss gave me a 2. And I said, Dave, I live my personal finances with abandonment also. He moved me up to a 10.
Now, this poster that you designed, that was just the first of 20 annual posters. And they become so iconic that they're highly prized. So much so that the MoMA has 13 of them in their art collection.
Well, you did your homework.
I'm not going to be sitting in front of you and just wing it. You deserve more than that.
Thank you. Yeah, they were the first. They were the first to put some in their collection. And now they're, several, like San Francisco MoMA has the full set as of last year. Okay. Grand Rapids Art Museum has a full set. Museum of Decorative Arts, Montreal has a full set. Museum of Decorative Arts in Denmark, full set. So some museums have full sets, others just, Denver's working on their set.
the Denver, is that the
Denver Art
Center?
Museum.
The Art Museum.
Yeah.
Do you see those pieces as art, or do you ever think about the fact that now they're being displayed in an art museum?
They're posters.
What does that mean?
Well, they're posters. Museums, they're not like, they're in their design collections. Mm-hmm. They're not like in the fine art collection or the painting collection or the printmaking collection. They're usually categorized in the design collection. So they're designs, posters. It could be a record album cover, could be brochure, could be, Cooper Hewitt, for example. They have a tremendous number of my annual reports in their collection. Is that art? I don't think so. Could be artful.
But you don't see them as art?
I don't see them as art, no.
Do you think what do you think is their position within that art collection?
Because they're good reference points of good graphic design. Communication. See, I think, people talk about their legacies, what kind of legacy are you going to leave? I'm happy if I leave a few reference points that might inspire a student or someone else in the profession,
And you mentioned the annual reports. You're well known for your posters, but also for your annual reports. Mm. And in 2010, AIJ recognized you with the AIJ medal for establishing the highest standards of corporate design. They talk about several of your annual reports you did for Herman Miller, including one in 1985 where you photographed
every employee in the company. They were about an inch tall. 24 pages across the page from the top to the bottom, on and on and on. That was pre-computer. So some stripper at the press had to outline every one of them. He must have had carpal tunnel in their fingers, but it was a great report. In fact, I talk about it tonight in the presentation a little bit.
So I'm not going to ask you too much. So it's a
no, you can ask me because you're not going to get this done before I talk.
Yeah, it'll come out later.
You might as well be recording tonight. You might get more.
You also did an annual report in 2002 after a very bad fiscal year. You were highlighting a Doppler radar photo of bad weather and a poncho, a rain poncho. And we usually think of annual reports as dry and boring, but you really take them to... it was a lousy year financially. The company wasn't doing well. And the plan originally was to print the whole annual report on a garbage bag. Was that your plan or their plan?
That was my plan.
And what happened?
Well, I got a garbage bag, one of these plastic garbage bags, and I made sure I could fit everything on it that had to be on there legally. All the numbers, all the management's discussion and analysis, the letter from the CEO, the accountants, everybody. It fit both sides. So what happened was, who's going to produce it? I could only I did have a supplier in China, but they couldn't get it done in time.
Why can't you screen printing at the studio after hours?
Because the type got pretty small. And plus, when you're screen printing, sometimes you have a vacuum table. Well, yeah. Plastic bags, and have wrinkles, and they would do it another way, but I couldn't get it done in time. So I said, now what am I going to do? And Deborah Sussman happened to be visiting Herman Miller. It was a rainy morning, and she came in with one of these cheap ponchos that you get at the ballpark or the golf course. It starts to rain. I said, that's it. So that's what we did.
So there's inspiration, and you're around with it.
I don't never know where I'm going to get inspiration. My antenna's always out. That's why I like to travel.
Is there a thought process behind it? Do you look for inspiration, or you just...
Well, the inspiration was, okay, it's a crummy year. We want to really instilled the fact that it wasn't the greatest year. And the Poncho probably actually worked out better because we had a little tagline that said, "Thank you, shareholder, for your loyalty." You know, here's a little Poncho in case you're caught in the rain. Something like that. I don't remember. So we wanted, in a way, we wanted to celebrate, not really celebrate a lousy year, but why hide it? We're a pretty transparent company and pretty honest about where things are. So we just said, hey, let's acknowledge the lousy year and talk about what's coming on down the pike, which was more promising.
How much of that was the company culture, the fact that you had a bad year, and rather than hide it, you can just play with it and make it more optimistic?
Well, I believe that's probably one of the factors I've stayed with the company for 4.5 decades.
How was that?
Openness, honesty, transparency.
And that's always been for the last 45 years?
Yeah. I mean, it's one form or another. I mean, in 2008, when the economy was really tanking, the CEO, 1 month before the holidays, sent everyone an email saying, we have to reduce X amount of dollars, 500 people are going to be out of work, blah, blah, blah. It was right there. Everybody in the company got it. And he kept that communication going until we recovered. Every month he'd give us sort of a status report on what was happening. So yeah, they're open.
Now you are heading the communication, the visual communications for them. How does that feel to have such an open communication and using your visual communications for?
Well, I remember once I was reading some copy that someone in marketing, and we were working on a project for them. I'm reading this bullshit. He says, "Is this true?" I'm straight in the eye, like I'm looking at you. Is this really true? I said, "I don't think it is. Here, I'm not touching this until you come back with the truth."
Wow. So you're affecting their company culture, or
well, I think I'm not the only one that does that.
Now, your role has changed significantly. You started as a first internal graphic designer, and then you move on. Now you're in a consulting role, and they're outsourcing a lot of the design. How has your role changed throughout the years, and how has that affected your relationship to their material?
Well, I probably don't have the influence that I once had when I had a staff and a department and things like that. But right now, my consulting is primarily giving presentations about the corporate culture.
Are you enjoying that?
Loving it. I do it with a colleague. So people have described us as an old married couple. We banter back and forth just like you and I are doing now. And we just have a good time. And we always change our material. And we try not to give too many alternative facts. Thank you, Mr. Trump, for that line. we used to say we guarantee to tell the truth, but our facts may be wrong. But now we say we
have alternative facts.
We might have alternative facts.
Is there a project that you look back to fondly? Do you have a favorite project that you worked on?
Well, I kind of look at 3 bodies of work. I mean, I've done a lot of things, but 3. One would be the picnic posters. Another would be the annual reports. And then we did a magazine that was called C. Came out twice a year. And it was a wonderful project. And we managed to get 6 issues done. 7th was ready to go to the printer. And they pulled the plug. And I look at that. I mean, and the designer was Todd Richards. He was on the West Coast. But working on that project, I always felt I had the best job in the company. It was just so much fun. Todd, they were big magazines. They were a 1/2 inch thick. Always had a theme. Never mentioned Herman Miller. It was called See. See the Potential of Place. So Clark Malcolm, my colleague, was the editor-in-chief. He always decided what the theme would be. He chose writers to write different articles. Todd would select photographers, illustrators, you know. He read the articles. It was just a whole lot of fun. Plus, we got to go to San Francisco. We had home and away games. We did everything electronically up until the last 2 weeks, and then we either met in West Michigan or we'd go to San Francisco. We liked the away games. I mean, not many teams liked the away games, but we always loved the away games. San Francisco.
Is there any project that you still wish to do, or anything? Do you still have a dream project that you haven't done yet?
No, I don't know. I don't look at them like that. I kind of look at every project that comes along as an opportunity. Now, some have greater opportunities. Some I have more interest in. Some I acquire interest once I come up with an idea or a concept to the solution, for a solution to the problem. No, I can't. No, I don't think so.
So you said initially that people have to be here to hear a lecture, but those who can't be here, do you want to give them a little preview, or too bad for them?
Well, you could stream it. They could. I mean, now that would be legit, maybe, because I got slides on a big screen. They don't need to see me. I'm just talking about this stuff, and yeah. What was your question again?
Do you want to give a little preview for those who are not here tonight?
I talk about some of the lessons I've learned through the course of my career.
And those who are not here will have to ask us about it.
Yeah, and I originally, when I started down this rabbit hole of thinking about this as a idea for a presentation, the first time I did it, which several years ago, I thought I could get through 25. And the night before I'm on, I said, I better see how long this sucker is. So I set my clock for 45 minutes or whatever. I'm not even a third of the way through it, and the alarm goes off. I'm on in the morning at 10.
Oh, wow.
I said, where's the scalpel? And I cut it down. So now I get through 10. But what's funny is I presented at a conference a couple years ago, and I must have done okay because they invited me to come again. And they say, why don't you do the ones you didn't get through?
So the reject show.
No, they're not rejects. They're not rejects. The night that I had to cull, I edited.
The edits.
Yeah, the runner-up or something. No, I can make up good stories.
How much has the culture changed since when you started and where it's at now, or happened?
The fundamentals are there, okay? I think the fundamentals are there. Things are different. The values are pretty similar. They're pretty solid. But when I started, it was an $18 million company. Now it's $2 billion. There were 650 people when I started. Now they're, 7,000 globally. So with that, you do change, but I'd say the values are pretty solid. It's pretty much the same place. Care about the employees, openness, transparency. I talk a little bit about tonight. I would say in the 80s, 70s, 80s, you would hear the expression from people on the plant floor to the executive suite, that's Herman Miller, or that's not Herman Miller. You just knew. You know, it was in the ethos of the company. In the 90s, I never heard that expression anymore. And the CEO, around 2000, how long Nick's been with us. Maybe 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I can't quite remember. He asked the chief creative officer, relatively new fella in the company, not new in the industry, hey, how do we evaluate the work that we're doing? How do we know it's Herman Miller? And so they'll talk about this tonight, but I'll share with you now. So he pulled together a small team, some veterans. There was the fella who was heading up design and development, my friend Clark, Mary Stevens, who'd been with the company in lots of different areas, myself, and then a couple new people. And we had it licked in a half a day. Best meeting I've ever had at Herman Miller. Half a day. Got it solved. Because it had been written down from Gilbert Rhodey, our first real designer, George Nelson, Eames, Gerard, Probst, Bill Stump, Chadwick. They'd write down, how they approached design, what they were trying to accomplish, so forth. So we basically went back and said, yeah, it's still whole. Even the founder of the company, he's influenced that meeting because he wrote stuff down. And so we have 10 design tenets. There was only one new one, and that was sustainable. And we had a little discussion about that. Do we add that? We all agreed, yeah, it's pretty important. So we added it. So we have 10 design tenets. So that's our yardstick now. If you have a problem with something, you better be able to pull out the tenets and say, well, I have a problem with it because of this, this, and this. Now, do you measure up to all 10? No. 300 is a good batting average in baseball. So 3 out of 10 is okay, in my opinion. So that's the yardstick. It was a fun meeting. Then we all got to go to dinner and have a couple drinks and rolled them out. And we actually have classes on them. Yeah, so we have, I like it when Mary goes because she's really good. She's better than Clark and me and the tenants. We do the design history. We have the other one we do, Clark and me, called Threads, and that's all about the company culture and all our personal stories, because collectively we've got 75 years. We knew the founder. I've worked with every CEO. People would die for that opportunity.
It doesn't happen anymore. People leave places. They don't.
Oh yeah, they leave. They leave. I was going to leave after 2 years. I thought I didn't want to be in Mid-America. I grew up in Mid-America. I went to school in Mid-America. I either wanted West Coast, East Coast. East Coast, West Coast. And but they offered me a job. So I said, well, they got pretty good design DNA. You might want to think about this. So I took it, thinking I'd stay for 2 years. It's like any job. It's like riding a roller coaster. Some years are good, some years not so good. Some days are good. Some days you just say, oh, what am I doing here?
Except you rode that roller coaster for 45 years.
Yeah, it's fun.
Some of us do it for 1-2 years. You do 45.
Well, I try to tell the young designers who are getting a little impatient, I say, it would help if you had some corporate patience. This too will pass. I think one reason people leave their jobs is they don't like who they're reporting to. Or they may not be rewarded enough.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what it is. Or they may not believe in what they're doing. See, I believe in our products and what we're doing, what we're selling. So I can sincerely put my heart into my work. A lot of people can't say that.
Thank you very much for...
We done?
We can keep going if you want.
Well, you didn't get through all your questions, did you?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay, I guess we're done. Thanks, Bernardo. This was fun.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing your stories and your design insight. Thank you to Katie Leach for documenting this conversation through photography, which you can see through our website, and for general production assistance. And the voice you heard at the end with additional questions was Katie's. Thank you, Ryan Evans, for providing the music for this series.
If you want to learn more about this project or for more information on AIGA Philadelphia, please visit philadelphia.aiga.org.